Recently, I got asked on an Instagram live video whether or not it's important for producers to know how to sound design. And the short answer is yes. But believe it or not, this is the basis for the whole Stranger Things theme song. What? It's just a couple of tweaks and it's the most simplest sound. I know a lot of people enjoy a nice and sunny day. Sun's out and all that. But for me, I'm weird in that way, that I like when it rains, when it's quiet outside, the steam from the pool is just over the top of the water. There's a certain peacefulness and stillness that comes with that kind of climate, and it's probably one of the reasons why I continue to stay in Vancouver, because it rains a good chunk of the year. I'm gonna finish this cup of coffee and then head to the gym. Some dates. My hands are shaking. I have like blisters on my feet from the run, blisters on my hand from the bar. I'm sweaty and I feel good. And these dates are delicious, especially after you've been working for like been in the gym and you've been sweating your ass off. You need the carbs and the sugar and the protein shake. I was in there for nearly 2 hours.
Okay, so that's the beat for today. Let me know what you think about that. You may have noticed that I did a little bit of sound design in this video, just some very basic bass filtered out sound stuff. Recently I got asked on a Instagram live video whether or not it's important for producers to know how to sound design. And the short answer is yes. And the long answer is that if you've created a sound or you found a sound, if you know where the parameters are, how they function, what they're called, you'll be able to take, let's say, an almost perfect preset and tweak it because you know how all the parameters work to create the sound that you hear in your head, right? And the second reason is so that you can communicate with other producers, artists, musicians on ideas and thoughts that you have about something that you're working on. So what I want to do is kind of break down basic parameters that make up almost every synthesizer. They can be broken down into 3 categories. At least that's how I kind of see it. First category is the sound generator. The thing that creates the sound or the audio that you hear is called an oscillator. Oscillator basically means it's just a waveform that's oscillating in the positive and minus direction, in the same way that your speakers move forward and backwards to push air to create sound. So I'm going to show you similar modules within both Serum and 3X oscillator. Oscillators are generating the sound. So when I click here, when I play a note, it's creating a sound. Now, oscillators are capable of creating a variety of tones and generating different types of sounds, depending on what kind of synthesis or synthesizer that you are using. Now, for the purposes of the video, I'm not going to get into FM, subtractive, or granular synthesis, but if you guys want to see stuff like that, let me know in the comments. In a very basic sense, every synth will have some kind of way of generating a sound. Now, in Serum, you have 4 different ways of generating a sound. You have oscillator A and oscillator B, but you also have sub-oscillator, which generates sounds in a lower octave range. The 4th sound generator is the noise generator. When you look at the 3X oscillator, you'll see that we have 1, 2, 3 oscillators that will generate different sounds. Between both of these plugins, you will notice a couple of similarities. Both of them have a sawtooth wave. This is what a sawtooth wave sounds like. On the 3X oscillator, you can see how they both kind of sound a little bit different from each other. How cool and interesting. Now, there are a few different types of waveforms. For example, the most pure of the sounds is a sine wave, sawtooth wave, triangle wave, and a square wave. Now, outside of this, you can also get into some very weird shapes as well, like this. Now, Serum is one of my favorite synthesizer plugins because not only can you do additive synthesis, you can do subtractive, you can do wavetable synthesis, FM synthesis, phase modulating synthesis. It's amazing. Those are your sound generators. So the next category that I want to talk to you guys about is something called a modifier. It modifies the sound. It changes the sound. And in the most basic form, this is something called a filter. A filter essentially can take away certain frequencies depending on how you use it. Now, there are a few different types of filters. There is something called a low pass, and this is what that sounds like. Then there's high pass filters, which sound like this. A band pass filter, which kind of, if you're looking at it visually, is a combination of a high pass and a low pass filter. Now, within the 3X oscillator, you'll have a similar feature. So let me show you how you get to that. You can hit the gear icon. You can go down to this funny little envelope instrument setting, and the filter is located here. And if I show you what that sounds like, and And if you want to change your filter to a different type, like a high pass or a band pass, you'll see them labeled over here in this little drop down menu. And there's a few other different ones in here that I want you guys to explore and see what those sound like. You may have noticed that there is another knob underneath the filter knob called Mod Y, and the second knob is called resonance, or it can also be thought of as a emphasis on where the cutoff frequency starts. So I'm going to show you what that looks like and sounds like within Serum because you have the visual feature in here. So what we'll do is we will play our sound and we will boost our resonance right here and we'll turn it down. So the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about within the sound category, the module category, is the sound modulator. Let's say you're sitting here and you are playing around with the knobs in this plugin and you've created the sound and you're turning this knob with your mouse as you're playing. And you're like, okay, well, how do I, do this without using my mouse so I can play the piano or have to do a bunch of automation to do that? Well, so how do you modulate that, do what you're trying to do without doing a bunch of automations? Well, how you do that is by using something like an envelope or an LFO to modulate the modifier. That sounds really confusing, right? So in Serum, this is how that would work. You would click on envelope 2 and you would drag from here and you would drop it on the cutoff and you'll see that a blue line appears. And how that works in correlation to your envelope is the sound will start at 0 when you hit the note, and as you're holding it, it'll jump to the top. While you're holding the note, it'll stay or move down depending on what parameters you change down here, and then the release is over time how that modulation changes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up these knobs like this. I'm going to turn this one down. I'm gonna turn this one up. So what it's going to sound like, the sound will start at the bottom, it'll get to the top, and then it'll come down slowly while I'm holding the note. And when I let go, the sound is going to continue playing because of envelope 1, because of its release time. Envelope 2, that's modifying the filter, will slowly open up or come back down to the natural resting position, which is where this white dot line is. So when I hold a note, right? It's a very basic sound. You're using a basic sound wave, you're using a basic filter, and you're modifying it or modulating it with a very basic envelope. Within the 3x oscillator, you can do the same thing, except the way that you do it here is slightly different, but the same principles apply. So you go here to mod X, which we know the X parameter controls the filter, and we'll turn on the envelope. Since it's already connected within the 3x oscillator by default, in order to actually control that parameter, we want to turn up the amount and we want to bring down this filter knob down to say something like that. And in order to create the same effect or the same curve, we're going to kind of ballpark it here, and it should sound like this. Cool. And where this can get really wild and fun and crazy is you can take like the envelope here, or let's say the LFO, attach it to the resonance, turn up the speed of the resonance to something wild. It almost sounds like Chewbacca. This is where again it gets exciting, is let's say you want this to kind of sound like a brass sound. Now that sounds kind of cool by itself, but believe it or not, this is the basis for the whole Stranger Things theme song. What? It's just a couple of tweaks and it's the most simplest sound. And if we do the same thing here in the 3x oscillator, go to the up and down, set this to 2.0. So we just recreated that same sound in both the plugins, and you'll hear how they slightly sound different from each other. If we go to the Serum plugin, very cool, right? So very cool, very basic sound design stuff, but I feel like once you understand the fundamentals, even if it's just the fundamentals, you vastly open up the potential, your world, your sound palette to near infinite possibilities. Sound design and synthesis is a lot of fun. Luckily, the fee to enter or get into it is just understanding the fundamentals: oscillators, filters, and modulators, and then just go wild and just create the wackiest sounds that you can think of and just go explore. And that's where the world of Eurorack gets excited, which is just a bunch of hardware pieces that do one job, and you can patch anything into anything and go into generative music and randomization and all this stuff. I hope you guys found this video helpful or somewhat insightful. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe, and let me know if you guys are already doing some kind of sound design. What is your go-to plugin to do that? Is it Serum? Is it the 3X oscillator? Is it FM8 from Native Inch? What plugin do you guys use? Feel free to comment that below. I'm reading all the comments and I'll reply to as many as I can. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Oh, before I go, quick update on Pandora. I'm pushing the release of it back a little bit because I'm building a brand new website, which has basically been the reason why it's been delayed so much. It's coming, and you guys are gonna love it. It's gonna be the best free kit that you guys have ever gotten. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, SIKKY.